And first up this week is going to be Beastborne, Mark of the Founder, Beastborne Chronicles, book number 1, written by James T. Callum. It is 1,068 pages, $4.99. It's available on Kindle Unlimited, a massive novel. Here's the novel description. A new founder marked with otherworldly power, an epic quest to build a Sanctum settlement, a fabled class that wields monstrous magics. The founders were the first marked, and they use those powers to build kingdoms, subjugate the land, and enrich themselves, and they will not suffer another to join their ranks. Lost in a world of levels, stats, and monsters, Hal fights to survive in an unforgiving land and escape execution from its rulers. Ingenuity and courage won't be enough. With the marked powers he doesn't understand, he's easy prey for all the goblins, bandits, aberrations, and foul monsters that plague the realm. He'll need to abandon his humanity by embracing the beast within. To fight monsters, one has to risk becoming a monster if he can survive long enough to level up. Freedom and safety cannot be achieved alone, only by forging bonds with fellow adventurers and monsters alike does Hal and his would-be kingdom have any chance of surviving the hazardous realm. So there you go. This is a long book. It took me probably took the longest portion of the week to read. And it's actually a serial story with another, I think, 100 chapters online in addition to this. It's a story that has a very strong opening. But because it is a collected serial story, it goes through like these mini arcs instead of having like this planned out overarching kind of plotline that was set for a book. You can tell that they're essentially like these mini little adventures, which is perfectly normal in a serialized story where an author is putting out a chapter a day or a chapter a week, whatever the case is, and the story just kind of develops on as it's being written. But not everybody's okay with that kind of formatting. And this is a perfect example in that it's entertaining. A lot of people really enjoy it. A lot of the fans from the version that was on the Royal Road have come over to Amazon to show their appreciation for the author and his works. When I was reading, it was like, I expected something different from the first 5%, which has a really strong opening. But as it's going on, I was like, oh no, this is definitely not going in the direction I was thinking it was. And once I realized it's serial, I was like, oh, okay, now this all makes sense. This is very slice of life, and it's not exactly knowing where it's going as it was being written, and that's sort of reflected in the arcs. At some point, the author you could tell he figured out a plot line that he's going to continue on in, and it kind of goes in the direction. For some of the beginnings, like, oh, I don't know where this is going. So, but it's entertaining. There's good action, but again, it definitely feels slice of life, and especially towards the first section of the story. The main character feels like he's stumbling in situations where he needs new allies, has to fight off monsters, gets quests to push the story forward. The story itself starts out as a kind of chosen one portal fiction where the main character is sent to an RPG world, is branded with a social mark that gives him an edge in that world, called the Founder's Mark, which is described in the novel description. But it also brings danger. And so there's a little bit of world building here, but a lot of just trying to survive in that early section of the story. Then as he gets allies, his quest line becomes a little more fulfilled or filled out, I should say. On the game mechanics side of things, it's a little bit of a mixed bag. For the most part, things are good. Lots of stats, lots of character sheets, notifications, XP, all that good stuff. Relatively crunchy. However, there are a few places in the storyline where it's like, oh, this is kind of a wand wavy way to get this particular power. And just as an example that doesn't like break the story in any way, shape, or form, if you know about it, but it's a little bit of spoiler. So skip ahead if you want to. But at some point in the early part of the story, the main character wants to destroy an item. I won't say what item, but it's a magical item. And so he just grabs it, and suddenly he has the ability to invest mana, and that's supposed to give him the ability to essentially break this item. He kind of willed it into existence. Didn't apply stat points, didn't apply skill points or ability points or class points, whatever the case is. He's kind of willed the power into existence. And then when he runs out of mana to try to do this, he gets a new ability called Assimilation, which allows him to take his mana points or his stamina points or his health points and use them for one of the other features, like essentially pulling them together to some degree, even though there is a conversion ratio, which allows him to accomplish that task with, just one health point left. And so there are definitely incidents like that where I'm like, that definitely doesn't feel like it follows an established game mechanic. that was pre-built. It felt like something that was made up to be cool or just to advance the plotline. And there were several instances in the story where that occurs. I'm like, okay, it's kind of a minor gripe, but it kind of undoes some of the other hard work that goes in the story, because there are definitely other places in the novel where the game mechanics feel like they're impactful. For example, when the main character first arrives in the world, he has ones in all of his stats. And it is reflected in the actual description of what he looks like. He looks super thin. He gets tired easily. He can't even speak correctly because of his low intelligence. And as he invests stat points as he levels, those characteristics become filled out. He becomes thicker. He becomes, a more fleshed out person. He becomes a little more charismatic. But with part of the biggest one is like he can be understood when he talks. And so when you have those two aspects, like sometimes it's just little like, oh well, it's just one of those things. So for me, it's something that kind of just took away my enjoyment whenever I saw one of those wand wave moments. Like, I don't feel like it needed to be there, because the author I felt like the author had invested enough time into building out like the things he wanted to do in the game mechanics that he could have done something. But again, that's just a thing that bugs me sometimes. Overall, entertaining story. Action is probably going to be one of the bigger highlights for people. Good value for its length, of course. Over 1,000 pages for $4.09. And again, if you don't mind the serial nature of the story, or if you want a few moments, you're probably gonna have a good time with this. Gets a score of 7.4 out of 10 for me. That's Beastborne, Mark of the Founder, an epic portal fantasy LitRPG, Saga, Beastborne Chronicles book number 1, with a score of 7.4 out of 10.